Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time around, we're checking out a mod by the name of Rebel Rumble, and if its MS Paint stylings, both in weaponry and enemy design, seem familiar to you, that will be because this is created by the same author as Neutronian Chaos, another MS Paint styled gameplay mod that I tried out not too long ago. But this is of a slightly different ilk gameplay-wise to Neutronian Chaos. It's certainly much more on the arcadey side of things, and that's no surprise when some of its chief inspirations also include the likes of Smash TV. If you've never played Smash TV, it's all about shooting lots of people and winning fabulous prizes. And there's certainly a lot of fabulous things to be picked up, not so much TVs or microwave ovens, but at the very least, you're picking up lots of gems, presents, and all sorts of knickknacks to, crucially, keep you alive and also give you a sweet high score by the time you reach the end of things. Something else you'll be picking up on a fairly frequent basis here in Rebel Rumble is a wide variety of weaponry, and intriguingly, the way the weapons work here is that you can only hold one new weapon at any given time. As soon as you run out of ammo, it gets chucked, and then the weapon promptly explodes. After that, you're back to the old default pea shooter, and it's really not something you want to have to be using for any significant length of time. Its damage output is pretty paltry, especially when you start dealing with chunkier enemies. Every now and again, you'll also find that some enemies will in fact drop randomized weapon pickups for you, and if you're in the kind of situation where you'd like to swap out your current weapon for the new shiny one you found on the floor, you can in fact chuck your gun early in order to fill that empty slot with the new hotness. All in all, when it comes to the subject of the gun supply, it really depends on what kind of map pack you're playing this with. If you're playing on a slaughter map, for example, finding new guns is never really going to be that much of a problem. In fact, on maps such as Sunder, I ended up with a great big fat pile of guns just waiting for me to run back and pick them up while dealing with an oncoming horde. But in maps such as this one, which is the 50 Monsters map pack, you'll find that sometimes you will need to be a little thrifty with what you're using. Another intriguing aspect about Rebel Rumble is that the health system here also takes its cues from the classic games it's inspired by. So rather than hit points from 100 down to 0, as typically works in Doom, you've only got a set number of hits that you can take before you die. In this case, with this particular character here, I can take 2 hits and then I'm dead. It sounds harsh, but it's actually a lot more forgiving than it initially sounds, because after you take a hit, you enter a period of invincibility, which means you can tank as many hits as you like during that time and not suffer damage. Another helpful thing about that is that in some levels you will actually just be swamped with enemies in quite close quarters, and there's no way in hell you're going to be dodging any projectiles in that situation, so that invincibility period actually works out really handy, because the other thing that you have at your disposal is the spam mine. And if you hit a certain button, you can drop a mine wherever you are, or backpedal from an enemy and drop a few mines in the general direction, and that's gonna hopefully take out a few of them and make the situation a little bit more manageable before that invincibility actually wears off. On top of all that, you can actually recover the hit that you've lost quite easily during the course of a level, provided you find a certain item that gives you that hit back. I'm pretty sure it's a present. If you see an item that's a present, that's going to give you the hit back. If you've already got full hits, it's going to give you extra points. But like I said, the whole arrangement with health here in Rebel Rumble is a lot more forgiving than it initially seems. In fact, the only detraction I can think of for the way this system works is there should probably be a bit more of an obvious HUD element to let you know exactly what you're dealing with when it's coming to health, like a few pips below the character portrait, for example. I mean, to its credit, when you do take a hit, it does display the critical sign, but I must confess it did take a while for it to all fully click in my head. So how about the weapons you'll be using during the course of Rebel Rumble? As you can probably already tell, it's a bit of an eclectic bunch. You'll be swapping them on a fairly frequent basis, and as a result, I have no idea what half of the names for them are, and I'm not entirely sure whether I've actually used all of them yet. Of the weapons that I have used, however, I've found the overall experience to be fairly entertaining. I mean, take the Lobber, for example, the weapon I'm currently using. It fires balls. Lots of balls. These balls also happen to be bouncy balls. They will bounce off walls. They will bounce into your enemies' faces. If you're a fan of balls, the Lobber is probably going to be your weapon of choice. Bonus, it also has Suck My Balls written on the side of it. So, yeah, that's that weapon. Another weapon I quite enjoyed using whenever I stumbled across it would be the Whack-A-Matic, and oh god, I just got the pun. I can't believe I didn't get that till now. I was wondering why it had Pac-Man on the back of it, and then I said the name out loud. Whack-A-Matic. Wacka 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 wacka. It's the sound that Pac-Man makes. That is genius! So yeah, on the basis of that pun alone, I think I'm going to say that previous weapon is now a 10 out of 10. And I'm even tempted to say that this gun right here is a 10 out of 10 too. Not just because of a pun for a name, but because it's a rocket launcher that fires rapid fire, and it just so happens to be the kind of rocket launcher that doesn't inflict any self-damage on me when I fire it like an idiot, like I usually do, which usually involves me being stood far too close to a wall, or firing it at an enemy that stood directly in front of my face. So yeah, is good. Is good rocket launcher. Yeah, 9 out of 10. The extra point would be for a puntastic name. As far as weapons that are kind of rubbish go, I'd say that the Descender here is certainly something that fits the bill. It's a weapon that you can't fire straight. It's quite powerful, but if you're firing it like this, you got to make sure there is no ceiling in the way, lest your projectiles get caught on it, that you're far enough away from your enemy for the arcing trajectory of your projectiles to actually land on them, or if you've got no option to do that, you've got to aim at the floor in order to actually hit them. It's it's so naff. It's actually so rubbish that I actually kind of love it. Believe it or not, there is also a melee option available to you during the course of Rebel Rumble, and with this particular character it takes the form of a big-ass sword. Does all the usual things you'd expect. You swing it about, hit your enemies in the faces. If they don't die, they get knocked back, which I can see being quite useful if you get swamped by a number of enemies and need to make a little bit more room for yourself. But one of the more interesting applications of the melee here is the ability to knock certain projectiles back if they're getting a little too close to your face. And while that does sound extremely cool, I find the implementation of it a little iffy, and as a result it led to me just kind of giving up on using it and instead relying on my ability to sidestep out the way and just, you know, shoot my enemies in the face. One of my chief problems with the melee, at least with this particular character here, is that actually hitting the button and having the sword swing felt ever so slightly sluggish, which always led to me fudging my timings when it came to knocking certain projectiles back. And when it came to the projectiles themselves, I couldn't always be sure that the projectiles I was aiming for were in fact reflectable. Now, on the subject of sluggishness, it does feel like less of an issue with the other available character here in Rebel Rumble. What you seemingly gain in reaction speed, however, is sacrificed in the form of being able to take less hits. But on the subject of the projectiles themselves, I do feel like things could be cleared up ever so slightly if there was a defined set color for projectiles that are absolutely reflectable and destructible compared to the other ones that may potentially slip through your defenses. For all I know, though, that may already be the case, and it just turns out I'm absolutely terrible at timing my sword swings properly, so if that turns out to be the case, then I accept my shame. Overall, though, I'd certainly say that Rebel Rumble is a heck of a lot of fun. I dare say even ever so slightly addictive, because I quite frequently found myself thinking, you know what, I've got more than enough footage to make this video now, I should probably stop recording. Ah, screw it, let's play another level. And before I knew it, an extra hour had gone by, so yeah, there's definitely something very right going on with the gameplay at the heart of Rebel Rumble here. I'm also a fan of the styling. The MS Paint style of Captain J is serving this extremely well. I like the cartooniness of the weaponry. They still look appropriately badass. I like the designs of quite a lot of the enemies as well, though I do feel like a few of them could stand to have a little bit more definition in terms of color to help identify them, because some of them, with the current color scheme, do tend to look very similar at a little bit of a distance, so you're not always entirely sure what you're going to be dealing with until you kind of get up close and personal with them. But yeah, if you're in the mood for a solid, fast-paced, arcadey style Doom mod, you can't really go far wrong with the likes of Rebel Rumble here. And if you're interested in giving it a whirl for yourself, then you'll find the link, as usual, in the description below. While I'm at it, I'd like to give a great big thank you to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so very much for supporting the channel and for helping to make content like this possible. If you're interested in lending a hand, maybe you'd like to see your name in the credits, or maybe you'd like to get your hands on early editions of my videos before anyone else. If that's the case, you'll find the link to my Patreon page also in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mods you'd like to see me cover in future editions of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.